We are here with, I'm going to throw out the word legend. Is that okay? Can I say legend?
Okay. Brad Pitt is a legend, but I'll be like, hey, this guy he's super into strength and conditioning.
I'm going to throw this out there, though. With that beard, you're better looking than Brad Pitt.
Well, that's very kind of you. This is we're running an experiment. The universe and the internet, like, sure, I may have cured someone's shoulder rabies 1,000 times, but the beard is what people love. So, just ran an A/B test. Turns out the beard is recently our marketing team was like, hey, we don't want to freak you out, but the beard is a brand asset. So we should think about it in that terms.
Numbers are up with the beard. You will have the beard at Affiliate Con. You are one of 4 keynote speakers. We appreciate you making the time to be there. We'll talk about what you'll be presenting, but I'd also like to give a little bit of your backstory and what's going on now. And before we even get to that, you were hard to lock down for Affiliate Con. I assume, making some assumptions here, that little girl behind you is no longer little, and she's the reason we were struggling. Turns out, and I spoke to a few others in the West Coast about this, water polo is huge on the West Coast.
It is sort of bananas here. And one of the things that is tough for people to wrap their heads around is we do not miss water polo games. We just don't. This kid now as a senior in high school, and I don't have many more shots at watching her play goalie. She is going on to play water polo as a goalie at Berkeley next year, Division
Wow.
One. Yeah, it's a huge, incredible program. So anyway, it really sets this up. I think one is that I want to just straight up say that coaches are my favorite people on earth. I love coaching. If you sit down next to me on an airplane, I'm going to tell you I'm a coach first and foremost. And people are like, what does that mean? I'm like, I'm a high performance coach. It means I am going to talk about nutrition and mindset and injury and recovery and strength and conditioning. Like the whole thing ends up being interesting to me. And the people who've taken that on as their mantle are my people. And I can never be bored in a room full of coaches. Like it is the best. They're nerds. This is all I think about. So I'm really excited about AffiliateCon. On the other hand, I just want to say that we run our business through two lenses here, and it's easy to lose track of those. Number one is, does this get our family more time together or less time together? Are we making decisions that takes away from the core reason why we work so hard, which is to have a dope family and dope life? And sometimes you have to put things off the side, but missing my kid's water polo game, is not low on my priority list. I'm going to not miss it. And the second thing is that we want to do dope shit with dope people. So those two things really end up guiding. And you can see I wanted to hang out with the cool kids and all the coaches who I literally are my people. And then simultaneously, rule number one is, man, I can't mess this up.
That's really cool. And I think, Christian has a 16-year-old and a newborn. I've got 2 toddlers. So totally respected that when I heard back, that we're waiting for the schedule. And I was just, water polo is one of those sports where most people have never played, I would argue. And you're like, that looks impossible. Your
It
daughter
is.
must be like in
It's
crazy fit.
It's impossible. Let's put it this way. Everyone who's listening to this, if we went and treaded water for an hour, it would be like this is what I'm doing for my misogi. Like I am most elite. I'd be tweeting about it. People are like, I got cold for 2 minutes, on Instagram. I'm like, can you tread water for an hour? Because my daughter at this last tournament treaded water for 7 hours.
So
And then
they're treading. Like when they're playing, they're in the whole pool is the deep end. There's no
so
standing.
it's no standing. It's so cute. It's interesting. If you ever have kids who start water polo, they may have come from soccer. And the whole time you're on the sideline, you're like, put my kid in. Put my kid in. Why isn't my kid playing? My kid is superior. Put my kid in. You put your child into water polo. You're like, take my kid out. She's going to drown. She needs a break. Quick, give her a snack. Like, hey, no, don't sub my kid yet. She's still panting. Like it flips on its head entirely. The sport is, this is really the framework that we should be talking about, is that we have sports, and then by extension sports training is the last framework on earth to transform households, transform society, because it makes a scaffolding on which we can actually have these meta conversations about all of this. How do I work together? How do I show up? How do I prepare? What do I do when I'm anxious? My knee's going to hurt because I'm a human being and I have to sit at a job sometimes. How do I manage all that? And, that really is, I think, the beautiful framework and why we love sports so much. It turns out water polo, just the buy-in cost upfront for the kids who are playing, you have to be so fit to even enjoy the sport that it really weeds out. This is going to sound so terrible. It weeds out really shitty kids. And let me be, no child is shitty. You know
So
what I mean?
mine are shitty. You have not met
But what
mine.
I'm
They're
saying is like
shitty.
the buy it's so hard that it's not for everyone just because sort of the level of like personal accessibility, to be that vulnerable. And it's a little bit like frankly CrossFit. I mean, the oldest trope on CrossFit from Greg was that CrossFit's for everyone, but it's not for everyone. You know, and that the people who are there and are making this commitment to suffer every day are worthy of our best work.
I think because my kids are shitty, they need to do water polo. Like, now look what you've done. No, my 4-year-old, she loves swimming, so when this came up, I'm sure in Boulder, Colorado, you can find plenty of water polo, but I'm just my mind is blown. So your daughter, how long is is it a game or a match?
A game. It could be both. They play 4 7-minute quarters. It takes about an hour. So as a spectator, parents, if you want to pull your eyes out, definitely go to some like to a sport that just drags on and on. This sport has a start and a finish. It's super tidy. There's always action. You're right on the pool. It's hand eye. The men, it's like getting into a fight in the water. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's contact but not collision, huge aerobic capacity. And then Caroline, as you know, has had to learn to specialize because she's a goalie and is going to the places. Olympic lifting is our second sport, and that's how we've solved, because she grew up in a gym. We have an incredible Olympic lifting club near here with people that we've known forever and ever. And I can just drop in that barbell. I mean, for her junior sort of end of year present, she's like, I'd like to get my own custom barbell. And I was like, no way, impossible. We're never getting you a barbell. Which color? And so she, custom made her barbell. She has her own barbell. And that's how we solve a lot of problems. I think one of the things that we've we want to do with CrossFit is that CrossFit became about, initially no one was fit and no one was strong. And 45 reps of something was really a lot. And 21:59. And now we fast forward and we're all skilled, and no one comes in and barfs anymore. Like that just doesn't happen anymore. It used to be that people barfed every day at our gym. It was insane because the intensity was there. But we've farmed out intensity across every platform. Peloton, people are putting up big wattages even in high rock. So what we can do with CrossFit now is begin to continue to say, hey, how does it go from GPP, where I'm just burning calories and maybe getting stronger and loading my bones and becoming metabolically flexible? That's cool, but also it can be repurposed to be a perfect third place: home, kids sport, gym. And it ends up being the sport that every family can wrap their heads around, because box jumps and then moving and solving problems and basic gymnastics, that is where we're going to get all this movement learning, motor learning that supports the things that our kids want to do. And I just can't double click on that or highlight enough, because this thing is such a wonderful adaptation for sport. And it's not just about, hey, can I do another crappy wall ball or shitty burpee over a box? I just think sometimes we lose the narrative of like, wow, this thing is cool to get people exercising. But also, it's not just about burning calories and taking your shirt off. Like, it can be very nuanced to make elite performers. And that's why I'm still in it, and I still CrossFit.
I like that you tied that also to your values that you had talked about with your business. And one of them was like, does this enhance our family? And with the all the affiliate owners that we work with, they're often distracted by the thing that you had just pointed out, which is this thing's really cool. There's people in my gym. We've got barbells. Let's do Fran. And they're missing that this needs to enhance your member's life outside of the gym. And then I think maybe more importantly, it needs to enhance your life as the owner outside of the gym. And if those two things aren't happening, right? If those two things aren't happening, then the sustainability of your business uh, is going to be non-existent, and it's just a matter of time before either you get burned out or your business runs out of cash flow to where you can't keep doing this. And it's easy for us to look and be like, oh, well, because there's people doing burpees on the floor, I'm changing lives. And it's like, well, not necessarily.
That's
Yeah, you know, you're absolutely right there. And you know, we a CrossFit gym or any gym, any strength and conditioning community, and that's what really this is. You know, for a lot of people now, you know, it's been around. I've been CrossFitting for 21 years, and what I'll say is I'm still not bored. It's still just I'm literally like when I'm sore today. Shouldn't I have outgrown that? Like man, I suck at this skill. I thought I was fit. I mean, 21 years later, I just I hit myself in the face literally every day. Um, what is interesting is that the strength and conditioning community is really a hyper local phenomenon. And it's a mistake to think I, as a local center, as a local nexus and hub where I'm bringing people together. I mean, we can go on a tangent that strength and conditioning and sport is the last front porch in America where we can all get together and it doesn't matter, what faith you are, what, brand of politics. I'm like, you suck. And that deadlift is heavy. Get over there. Right. We're going to go together. But what's amazing is that because it is a local phenomenon, the people around you and their needs better than anyone else. And, if you go to, CrossFit South Brooklyn, it has a South Brooklyn vibe. Osario is a genius. And, you could never take an affiliate from Boulder and drop it into, in Brooklyn, you would drown. And vice versa. I mean, the number of sort of outdoor athletes, I went to school in Boulder, fuck them up, go see you. The idea here is that I know what my athletes need, and it's not this cookie cutter intensity. The intensity piece now is sort of given for granted. And I think initially, you have to put the perspective on this that 20 years ago, no one was overhead squatting. You couldn't, the rogue didn't exist. And now it is just such a normal thing that we get to have the next conversation. And next conversation can be, we can expand into better nutrition. We can expand into supporting people in sports. We can expand into sports performance. We can expand into, this is the place where if you have pain and dysfunction and are stable, we're going to help you work through that.
One of my favorite things when I bring athletes on is I tell them I'm not actually interested in getting more CrossFitters in my gym. And what I mean is people who've already been doing CrossFit, that's great. I'll welcome you. But it's I want to know, where are the people at that want to be able to do the things that they aren't currently able to do? And what's that thing? I'm right by the beach. So it's hey man, I want to go surfing, but I can't surf anymore because, my knee's bummed up. I'm I got a spot for you.
Yes.
The mom who wants to play with her kids. I can't get on the floor anymore. I got you.
Yeah, I love that because, frankly, there was Russell Berger had a parody website for a while before he was banned.
yeah, drywall, right? Was it drywall?
Maybe it's drywall, but he made funny headlines, and one of them was like CrossFit gym in San Francisco moves beyond writing people's times on the board. And I was like, that's not a joke. We stopped obsessing over who could get the most crappy double unders in whatever it was. Or, we did like to celebrate people's PRs, and we, putting two people together and competing. Greg was right. Men will die for points. And if everyone's out of shape, that's fine. But now we're seeing so much work volume. Like, one of my biggest fears and nightmares and critiques of something like F45 or Orange Theory is that if I take an athlete with a big engine who has some real exposure, maybe a D1 athlete, big, like an Olympic lifting sprinter gymnast, right? That sounds familiar. We take that person and I drop them at F45, they're going to do so much work or Orange Theory, that they can literally destroy themselves in volume and win, and then have it wreck their sport, their run, those things are great for beginners because you're rate limited by the fact that you're gonna, you can only pick up the 23-pound kettlebell and you can only do so many, at some point, people actually become so fit that it does matter that someone's like, oh, that's the stimulus, you know, and hey, this year we can go harder on these intensities, but we need to make sure that we're looking at your mechanics, not did the barbell go up and down? Did, and the CrossFit games, I love them, but also has confused the masses a little bit in terms of what is important. I'm just going to say something very unpopular here. So everyone be ready to unfollow me. Pull-ups are the dumbest sport in the world by themselves. So remember, as you're saying, Christian, that the point of the pull-up was so that I could do more surfing. The point of the pull-up was that it made my shoulders bomb-proof. Oh, the point of the pull-up was actually hanging and not even the pull-up, right? And so when we start to see it for what it is, then at some point I'm like, yeah, 50 pull-ups in a day is probably enough. And like we can be more interested in like, not could I squeeze out one more pull-up? Because that ends up developing what I think is prepper mindset. Like I'm going to take all this fitness and I'm going to store it up and I'm going to put it in this room and someday I'm going to spend it. Versus the intention is we used to train for a sport. And one of the things I adored about CrossFit I worked out at, CrossFit Santa Cruz with Greg, back in 2004. And the goal was my wife and I were like, holy moly, we can train and not be so destroyed that we can actually go do a sport. Like this was not 3 hours in the weight room, waiting for 2 minutes, doing the thing. Like it was fun, it conditioned, it hit all these needs. And then I could go have a life outside. And as we became really interested in this strength conditioning experiment, the room became very decorative. And then now I have my A and my B and my second session. And then this is, and that is fine. It is totally fine to have that be your hobby. But the original intention of strength and conditioning was to get better at something out in the world. And I think we can do both things. Hey, I know that there are times in my life when I have kids in a business, I was just so stoked to go into my garage and smash myself with rowing and thrusters, like super simple and elegant. And simultaneously, it's not just about recursive fitness. I do more pull-ups, so I do more pull-ups, I do more pull-ups. I do more pull-ups to improve something outside. And if I start to see a diminishment in that outside, I need to go back and say, hey, this strength conditioning is not serving that.
So with your, it sounds like your entire belief, and for I think all of us that have been in CrossFit for 5, 10, 20 years have seen that evolution. How has this impacted your day to day training?
Well, we do a couple things. Juliet has been my CrossFit training partner from the start. I mean, really, like I discovered this website. We were at Club One here. She was in law school. She was a lawyer, and I was in PT school when I discovered CrossFit first semester. And you know, we love to train, and one of the things that I think has gotten us where we are now, where we're still training, is we ask two questions. Do I have a desire to train today? And if I do the warm up and I see how I feel. Because I don't know who I am at CrossFit for 20 plus years. I'm 52 years old. Like I need to, part of the reason that I'm training is to restore positions and make myself feel better. And I don't really chase weight PRs. I chase volume PRs. Like, can I power clean 100 kilos every 30 seconds for 20 minutes? That is a kind of PR that I chase, right? Like at some point, I'm like going from 500 to 600 on my deadlift no longer gets me something, right? But I am interested in, wow, I can pull 500 every minute on the minute for 20 minutes. Like that is way more interesting. But what happens is that as we've become more sophisticated, we can definitely see what is essential and is today's training getting in the way of tomorrow? And I really want people to understand, yes, when you're a beginner and you suck and you're weak, you're going to be sore, and welcome to Can't Squat Onto the Toilet Club. You got to pay that due. But eventually I want to make sure that we are feeling better and not realizing that we need to do more work just to entertain people. So I think that's one of the ways that we've matured a lot.
How do you use that? Because that's like that really ties into like a lot of basically all of what you do with the ready state. So how do you equip coaches to be able to do that?
Well, part of what you know, what we're trying to do at the Ready State with some of our work, and we have a whole strength and conditioning system that if you didn't know better, you'd be like, this is crazy. And I'm like, it is CrossFit for adults, right? Like, we're not swinging on the rings. No problem if you want to swing on the rings. There's some things that, 50 and 6 year olds, there are better things for me to do over there than, spend time on the gymnastics rings. Um, you know, One of the things that we can expand our brains on is making sure that, and I've been saying this for a long time, CrossFit makes the invisible visible. If you come and see me, you're like, Kelly, I'm a world-class athlete. I need you to assess me. I'm like, great, let's hang out for a week. And they're like, what? Well, I'm like, I need to see what happens to your overhead position when you're breathing real hard and fatigued on day 3. I need to see your ability to maintain these shapes and positions under speed load and under enormous metabolic demand, right? Oh, I'm going to have you run around the block and then I'm going to watch you snatch a kettlebell. And suddenly what we see is because I have all of these parameters to ultimately challenge the robustness of your position, I can see everything. I can choose the fantasy kickball team just by watching a bunch of people work out. And I can be like, that kid is an athlete. She's on my team. And it's because we can see what happens to default positions when people are under stress and the hate starts to get going. That metabolic demand comes up. I'm breathing hard, big weight on the bar. I'm going to see who you are. And what I want to do for us is expand that part of the mission of strength conditioning is not to just enhance physiology and not just to make you more insulin sensitive. That is like, okay, I'll get that in the background, right? We're going to squat today no matter what. And that means that you might be doing a 3-inch box squat under tempo, but we're squatting today because that is a fundamental experience and something you need to do. But what I would say on the other side of that is, hey, let's become curious about why people don't have range of motion, why people, we should be restoring capacities the same way we're enhancing energy pathways, enhancing strength and fundamental shapes. We also have an opportunity to expand our domain and say, hey, if you're in pain, I want you to come to the gym. This is the place to solve it. And for us, and we'll talk about this, is that in AffiliateCon is that we have a kind of a clear line, and that if someone has a clear mechanism of injury, pathology, right, or their back hurts so bad they had to call in sick from work, that's a medical emergency. We're going to get everyone out. Everything else is a training phenomenon. So if you come in with knee pain, it's not that you can't participate today. It means that, hey, we're going to become curious. And as coaches, we have all the tools we need. It's called regression and progression. We don't do a lot of corrective exercises in CrossFit. Sometimes you see some crossover symmetry stuff, but really we are masters in regressing fundamental exercises and progressing fundamental exercises. And then the mobilizations are just position transfer exercises. And again, this is the place where I want people to become curious and learn about their back pain and their lack of hip range of motion and their technique. And also, hey, do you feel safe? Are you eating? Do you sleep? This is the only place on the planet where we can have those conversations, which means we can really help people feel better. That is my intention. And my intention also is to help physios and providers and chiros be able to speak the language of strength and conditioning well enough that they can have real conversations and understand what's happening, while simultaneously coaches get better and better at restoring positions, understanding movement, compensations, etc. It is no longer okay to say, we went up and down, nothing broke, good job, get out of here, we'll see you tomorrow. Like, that's just, we know better than that now.
On that note, what will you be presenting at AffiliateCon?
I think we're going to talk about all the ways where we can say we're become very skilled. How do we expand our network business based operation to be able to make people feel better, restore positions, help people understand their blind spots? We sometimes, I'll say that a critique of a gym experience is that I give everyone the brief, we gather around the whiteboard, we all know what we're going to do, and then the music goes up and a coach walks around and kind of cheers a little bit. And I did a lot. I became very unpopular because sometimes I turn the music off. And my wife would be like, I need the music. And I'd be like, no one can hear me if I have the music on. And I'm talking to everyone. So some music in the background for vibe, but I need to coach my ass off and also be curious about how we're going to limit people today, keep them moving today, and have the next conversation, which is, hey, I see that your ankles don't bend and you're doing all this stupid shit to Jenga yourself down and snake back yourself down because we have some arbitrary depth goal. And instead of saying, hey, the next follow-on questions is, why can't you do that? I think that's really the issue. If you can't put your arms over your head, why are you kipping? You know what I mean? So we want to make sure that we're then saying, hey, let's take the next conversation of, hey, you don't have any end range shoulder flexion. And when we begin to do that, if we just begin to improve people's positions under all these loads and become curious about that, then what ends up happening is we have people go faster. So this is a shortcut to increased intensity, because ultimately there's only really two things we can measure in the gym, and that's range of motion, which everyone can wrap their heads around, and biomotor output, which is watts, power, pounds, time to completion, and everything is in service of those two things. And when I do those things, I'm going to have to eat right. I'm going to have to warm up right. I'm going to have to fuel right. I'm going to have to do all the things. One of the things that's happened is I see that warm-ups just become a waste of time. People do, like, they get into a lunge, they do the world's greatest dumb rotation, right? Like, it's just like people are not getting ready for a fight. And so how do we as coaches wrap our heads around innovation, meeting people's needs where they are, getting them primed so that people can come out unharmed and in better positions? That is a lifetime of work that is worthy of your attention and worthy of your life.
CrossFitters, I've purchased hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment in my life. I've been doing CrossFit since 2007. I've owned 4 affiliates. I currently own an affiliate in my basement. And let me tell you this, Rep Fitness is by far my favorite equipment. First of all, it's amazing quality. The price is right. And what I love is I talk to somebody that I know, that knows me, and that understands my needs. Now, cool thing is, as a family member of Best Hour, you can save big over at Rep Fitness. Go to repfitness.com/best hour and save on your next equipment purchase.
All right, guys, if you like this content, please subscribe to the podcast. But understand, we work with affiliates. If you are interested in building your business, understanding strategy, building a better community, and building better coaches and careers for them, hit the link somewhere around this video, and we'd love to have a call with you.
That's something that I teach my coaches all the way at the beginning of their internship is like, we're not just doing this lazy general warm up, go through the motions, and then let's pull out the barbell. Like, we're treating our general warm up as a physiological and psychological assessment. Is when you come in and I'll be like, hey, how's Kelly feeling today with his mindset? How's he feeling today physically? And we're
Yeah.
going to go through and plan these movements. So it's like, man, if we're going to squat today, maybe we are going to go down into a Spider-Man stretch and see how's that hip and knee feeling. And if that doesn't feel good, well, then we're probably not doing overhead squats. Or if we are, we're lightening the load or reducing range of motion.
Or we're
And
going to
taking
front
weight
squat.
movement.
That's right.
Or
Or we're
doing
going
front
to
squat. Right.
Yeah, I think that's really great is, let's be honest, we should all apologize for the terrible coaching we delivered a long time ago. We were so bad. And I'm just so sorry, everyone. You were part of the experience for me. And do you remember that scene in Watchmen where he, like, the Rorschach gets attacked in he's attacked in the cafeteria in the prison, and the guy who's sent to, like, kill him, he, like, punches him, and then he blocks it with the tray, and then he hits him in the mouth, and then he takes the hot oil and throws it on him. And as he's being taken away, he's like, I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me.
That's a good scene, yeah.
That is the scene that sticks in my head, is that if you show up every day and realize that these athletes are an experiment, that you're making a hypothesis, that they have maybe are there for their own reasons, but really your reason is that you're going to become a better coach after this session, which means we can be really meta about innovation. And look, we're going to have to front squat and sprint. We're going to jump and do pull-ups. Like, we're going to snatch. Like, sorry, like, we're going to get that done today. No matter what your physical culture guru is saying, these are the things we know get us to the Olympics. But that warm-up can be a place, and I started doing this a long time ago with our coaches. Remember, I did own a gym, CrossFit gym, for 18 years. And one of the things that I did not do was enforce a specific warm up. I had principles in the warm up. And what that did is it gave my coaches autonomy to play around, try things, innovate, demonstrate. And, and for me too, as a coach, I'd be like, all right, I'm bored. Like everyone grab a medicine ball and everyone be like, no, not the medicine ball warm up. And then like 15 minutes of squats and overhead and playing and passing and throwing and bouncing and skipping. Like people are like, I don't have anything left for the workout. I'm like, perfect. Now we're ready to go fight. Right. And so you'll see that if we can turn that chunk of time in the beginning, then there are places to innovate some physical culture and play. And again, the whole point is for you to become a better coach so that you can show up tomorrow and be a better coach, that those people get a better experience from you. And that means that you may need to sit down after the session and ask, what didn't work? Who's giving you feedback? Are coaches taking your class and being like, bro, that sucked, or hey, I really like that. That was super innovative and I'm going to steal that. So we need to be a little bit tighter in our feedback mechanisms. And look, if you're coaching 6 sessions, you might need to make a voice memo, put your phone down. You might need to be like, revisit that. You might need to kind of think at the end of the day when you're exhausted, what would I change? What would I like to do over again? What would I have back? And then make a little tweak, do it again better tomorrow.
If you are coaching a bunch of sessions, the good news is it's immediate retest. If you didn't like it, you get to fix. You just got the next class, fix the next
Yeah,
one, try something different.
100%. We forever we did we would teach our movement and mobility course at CrossFit, and we do one on Saturday and one on Sunday. And we did this for a long time. And people, my people who are my guests, they want to come, or they'd ask me, hey, which one should I come to? And I was like, come to Sunday because Saturday is going to suck. And they'd be like, what? And I'd be like, oh yeah, Saturday is going to be last week's deal, and then Sunday I'm going to have the new hotness. So come Sunday. And people, and I was always better the second day because I had tweaked and twisted and tried things and innovated and was like, that was terrible. And I think if you just start becoming a workout administrator, then you see the programming and you stop thinking creatively about how I can make this different. How do I put another twist to the pretzel? How I might warm and prep? How do I have more fun? There is every time there's a class going on or a small group session or even one-on-one training, it is a hypothesis. It's an experiment. You're testing your hypothesis, but then you have to read the results.
Go ahead, Jay.
I was just on a completely off topic. It's really impressive to see someone like you. You've been around 20 plus years, like you've said. And I think as well as I do, people have come and gone. Their beliefs have wavered, but it's really just nice to hear from someone who's been doing it, and someone not only who's been doing it, but I jokingly earlier, you've been a legend in this space. You're clearly educated. You know your shit. Like you're living the life. And I think for a lot of the people listening and those that are going to be at Affiliate Con, there's this talk of like, where's CrossFit going and good and bad. And it's like, this is the shit, right? Like, this is it. Like Dr. Kelly, K-Star, still doing the thing. It's just really like, it's making me very happy to hear you talk like this. And it's just exciting. It makes me really excited to hear you talk at Affiliate Con and just excited for the future of CrossFit because it's still the thing. Like it's still the methodology that works. Like the methodology hasn't gotten better, worse. Like it's improved, but it's now we can be better executors of that methodology with what you're saying, with what Christian is doing. It's not, and I think as a whole, we can, get too deep on this. It's like, we need to accept ownership. Like as the forefront and the leaders of this space, like we're in charge of our own destiny, and we can still make this thing amazing. I mean, by doing it right. So it's really exciting to hear you talk like this.
Oh, I want to just highlight that for a second. I agree. I think more than ever, look, I think we all understand that drinking is probably not great for you. But there's new research to show that not drinking is actually a risk factor for Alzheimer's.
I gotta start drinking again.
And it's not because of the alcohol; it's because of the behaviors that go along with the alcohol. Being
lots of sex with my wife. Yeah.
So socializing, going out, seeing friends, not being lonely, not being alone. And, what we are, if we strip back, this may be the only place on the planet where the DNA is group accountability, suffering next to someone. We have the Starrett system, which is our sort of strength conditioning lifestyle program for people of 40s, 50s, and 60s. And we have a guy in there right now who's like, hey, we have these two cohorts that we talk about right currently. And he's like, hey, I'd really like to separate out these cohorts, because it's just like, I don't know these people. And I was like, oh, in my head, I'm like, you're coming from fitness where like you put your headphones into the gym and you're alone. I was like, I have Olympians work out next to 12-year-olds. I have elite Olympic lifters working out next to 30-year-old moms. I have been doing that for over 20 years, and it makes a better experience because everyone reminds where they're coming from. Everyone does not eat the same cooking, but that community where we are in the same room is how we transform and reclaim society. Because you can believe whatever you want, but then when we are going ham as a team, I guarantee you we're going to come through transmuted on the other side. And, to your point, it really does create the last place where we can end loneliness. We can give people a reason to come and hang out. Once you come and jump in the boots. We used to have a little recovery session. We put Brain FM in, we put the boots on, people put their legs up, right? And it was just, hey, I'm not even training today. I'm just coming by because I love this place, and that's where all the tools are. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do here. Is it's a fitness club where we get to talk about these things, host social events. I'm not gonna lie, as a gym owner, I mean, like, I'm like, great, another birthday, great, another Christmas party, another in-house competition. Like, oh no, I get to do the open. Thank you so much. May I have another. And those events are crucial to the DNA of your gym because they give reason for people to get together. And that now more than ever is part of the mission of what we're trying to do in the strength and conditioning community.
Wait, but correct me if I'm wrong. What I heard is I can do all that or I can just drink more.
I think you can do all that and drink, or you can go home and watch Netflix by yourself and in your sobriety. And I think that is a really shitty existence. I really do. I think human brains are supposed to be brains, and they're only brains if they're around other brains. And this thing where people are training next to each other and on common mission and celebrating each other's wins. Show me a place in society where that exists, where you get all the cross pollination of society. And it really does. I think people get into jiu-jitsu and they're freaky about jiu-jitsu because it is CrossFit. Like, I died, I live, I die again, I tapped out, I'm in this community, I have contact, I'm doing something that is real, that there's some formality there. We still make people shake hands, even to this day. You'll see at AffiliateCon, I'll go up there and I'll be like, everyone stand up, letting you prep. And go ahead and shake the person next to you, meet a few other people, because we're all in the room together. And that's what's special about this whole thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I train jiu-jitsu for that reason. Like, I find it's like my, cliche best hour. Like, I love going
You
there.
don't get to be a student. You don't teach. You
Yeah.
get to go be an athlete. One of the things that is really important about what you just said there. Currently, I have I support a bunch of universities, but currently I have a couple of former they are head coaches of their respective water polo programs, and both of them have Olympic medals. They may be national team and world champions. They're savage women, but they are now lifting with their athletes. They do my program while the athletes are in the gym doing their Division I athletes. And the change for them of, I now am being vulnerable in front of my coach, in front of my athletes. My athletes are watching me work my ass off and get better. And they're actually like, I programmed gnarly, heavy suitcase walking lunge finishers the other day. I mean, I am a dick. Like, that's the worst movement there is. And I do suitcase so you can lean forward and just overload the shit out of your leg. I'm like, oh, no, I'm not going to keep your torso upright in this iteration. I'm not going to make you in a front rack or be overhead. I'm like, I want you to load up to the heaviest loads you can carry in your hands and then suffer across. And when an coach who's two-time Olympian is walking on the turf doing walking lunges and her athletes are cheering for her, that is the magic. So you have to go be a student and to expose yourself to learning something new and being vulnerable and picking up new skills. And we've lost that because people are real afraid of looking down or being beginners anymore. You have to go be a beginner.
Well, that's
And
why we advocate coaches taking class. Where like don't be that coach that only, if your schedule dictates and you got to get it in, you got to get it in. But don't be that dude that's doing special programming off in the corner and you're too good for class because you're going to lose the rapport that you could gain so much more of by sweating and suffering to the person next to you, showing that like, hey, I take the medicine too.
Oh, and you don't eat your own cooking? Huh. That's curious. Why is that? Because your cooking sucks, bro. I eat my own cooking, and I do think that there's a real opportunity. What's funny is that people have become so precious about their if I don't, if I don't hit 82.5% of this, 3 rep max and this thing, get all these reps, and I'm like, bro, you're a 42-year-old CrossFit coach. Like, literally, what are you training for? You know, and go jump into a class. In fact, what I would say is I go a step further and say, let's make sure that you are jumping in at least once a week. There's a coaches workout where it's all coaches and you have to eat someone else's cooking. And they're like, we are bench press and rope climbing. And you're like, fuck, I hate bench presses and rope climbs, but you shut up and eat their cooking because it doesn't matter. And so it really does give a chance for people to practice that vulnerability and remind you that everyone in your gym is very vulnerable and that they don't know what they're doing necessarily. They're, worried about looking dumb. They're worried about, I hurt my ACL back in Vietnam. I don't know if I can do this. I mean, people are bringing their toughest battles to your gym. And if you come in with a little bit more empathy and you're like, I know what it's like to be afraid, not just like the old coach, smoking a cigarette going, go more of everything, go harder. I think there's an opportunity here to become a better coach because you're actually a user fighting for the users.
On that note, with empathy, a challenge that I experience and I know other coaches and gym owners have is somebody does come in with a pre-existing injury or maybe they have a new condition
Everyone has a pre-existing injury.
yeah, and they show up and they're like, "Hey, my doctor told me not to squat anymore." How do we navigate that as coaches, and then how do we take that a step further for affiliate owners? Is how do we help bridge that gap between healthcare providers who don't understand?
Well, number one is we have to show, not tell. And when someone says that, then we just say, hey, what are your goals? Tell me about it. And it may be a person's not appropriate for a group training session, right? Just, hey, sorry, we're squatting today, and that's our main course. And, you're at a carnivore restaurant and you're telling me you're a vegan. Like, okay, we're going to have to put you in a side room. And it may be that person's totally appropriate for one-on-one coaching initially until we can sort of get through and get that person spun up. It's going to take a second. Then, the river is going past. So people are like, I can't get in that. You're insane. Look at these 12-year-old girls, power cleaning 100 kilos. Like that's not me. And what we always say for someone like that is, well, that's actually not true because you squat all day long. So, hey, if you see this box, let's do a sit to stand on this box. We change the language, and the number of times I begin a conversation about back pain or knee pain with a box squat is really powerful. We can limit range. People feel safe. It doesn't feel like there's a barbell on their back. I'm like, hey, hold this sandbag, hold this medicine ball. Let's squat down. And I just did this recently with a person who has, 8 fusions in their spine, is in their 70s. I was like, hey, can I see your squatting? He's like, I don't squat. And I was like, great, I'm going to have you do this sit to stand to this box because I need your back to handle these extension loads. That's the point. I need you to be able to lean forward, manage this load on your spine. And we do that with tempo. And I think what's interesting is that you could certainly, people want to sell complexity to coaches and trainers, but we already possess the 2 greatest tools in the world for pain and neuromuscular rehab and facilitation. You ready for them? Number 1, it's called tempo. So I'm like, oh, it hurts. Let's just slow you way down. So instead of a power clean today, we're going to go tempo goblet squat or tempo front squat. And guess what? And I mean tempo, like you're going to be like, can I go fast again with the knee pain? Nope. I want you to go brutally slow. And when we go slow, the brain says this is safe. I can manage the speed. In fact, what I'll tell you is there's a reason why we teach press, push, jerk. The press is strict variation. It's slow and grindy. We can get well organized. The push press suddenly adds a speed component to it and more complexity downstream. And then the push jerk means that I not only have to add speed, but I have to change direction. I go from open chain to closed chain to open chain again. And if you cannot jerk, your shoulder is not healthy. It is not ready to go for sport. And I'm telling you that speed is the ultimate arbiter of sort of readiness. But I can use that same tool and say, okay, what's on the other side of press? It's tempo. So suddenly I'm now tempo landmine. We're pressing no matter what today. Your press is going to go slow and we're going to limit your range. And when we begin to expose people, their beliefs change. They come out unharmed by brick. They come back. And that's why I'm like, hey, I don't believe that. And let's experiment together and be on this journey together. And let's do this sit to stand with this box. Does that feel okay? Great. We're going to go over to this bike. You can bike? Great. Let me see a minute on the watt bike. And I'm sorry about that. Or a minute on the assault bike, but like, sorry, not sorry. Die a little bit in a safe way. And then come over here and we're going to do 3 tempo air squats to this high box. And now we are doing some very, very sophisticated programming. And pretty soon that person develops a language that says, hey, squat comes up in the gym. I know what I'm doing. And now we can take the next step. Again, if you don't have that available, then they're not appropriate for the gym in a class setting because you can't minister them and run an elite practice or elite program at the same time. You can't do it.
I love the 2 things you mentioned, the 2 things that I preach, which is like, 1, what can you do? And I think that's important for patients to ask their, orthopedic or whoever's telling them this is like, okay, you told me what I can't do, but what can I do? Because all of a sudden that list gets longer when you rephrase the question. And then the second part is like, hey, what's pain free? And it's like, oh, well, if that's painful, well, then knock it down, and then knock it down, and then knock it down until we find that range of motion that is pain free, whether that's lighter, slower, unilateral, different range of
Yeah, right.
motion.
You can't. Oh, you don't want to squat? Can you step up into this box heavy? I'm like, oh, you're so screwed. Like I'm going to win this argument every single time. Like I'm going to win. Like I'm sorry. Like at some point, I'm going to trick your leg into flexing. I'm going to trip your hip into flexing, and you're just not going to know what's happening. Even one time I had GSP he's in the gym. He's doing his second ACL. He's doing a camp with me for a week, and I was like, hey, here's something we're working on. He used to turn his foot out a lot. Knee would come in. That was his mechanism for ACL tear. That was a real problem when he was planting and kicking. So we're working on that. And all I did was say, hey, let's do this specific skill. And I may have put it on a clock or something. And he infamously hates conditioning. And I was like, great, we're going to just challenge your ability to manage this position with just a little pressure demand and a little bit of metabolic demand. He's like, and then like literally 7 minutes in, he's like, hey, I know what you're doing here. Like I'm conditioning. And I was like, it's the first time you've ever conditioned and thought about technique and skill instead of just doing everything fresh and slow. We were challenging. And, we can do that no matter what. And if I can trick George St. Pierre into doing the thing, I know that I can trick that, that person who has beliefs. And remember, they didn't get there. Most people do not have a framework to know how to eat. They definitely don't know how to framework for how to fuel for an intense workout. They don't know how to recover. They don't know how to cook. They don't know how to warm up. They don't know how to handle a barbell, a dumbbell, a kettlebell, a jump rope, a box. Right? We're teaching them the whole language of what it means to be human. And ideally, I will tell you that you're a good coach is that if you close the gym, that person's like, it's been great. I can take it from here. Right? They'll never reproduce the community, the experience of being coached. It's the first coach environment people have ever been in, probably. And, don't become a workout administrator because I can do that on Apple, but streaming some bullshit in my living room.
So before we wrap up, I think those 2 letters in front of your name get a lot of, flexibility here. People walk in, they're like, well, he's a doctor. What can some of these owners out there that maybe feel like I'm not good enough yet. They suffer from imposter syndrome. What would maybe be like a small win or two? Because I think the key here is, GSP is not showing up at your gym because you're a CrossFit coach, right? Like somebody knows somebody who knows somebody who sent them to you and he believes in you. And we're not all training world champions, but the mom next door comes in, how do you get her to buy into these things? Because, like you said, for many of them, it's their first time ever being coached.
Well, as you said it earlier, as we were talking, like people have some expectations about what the experience is going to be. And you can't just 180 it on them and be like, no, 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 we're doing, I know you want that, but we're doing this. And so never be afraid to break off the thing. I mean, Greg used to talk a lot, the original, Helen was actually done on a bike. And he had people who like, hey, I don't, I have a whatever it is, and he'd be like, great, let's jump on the bike. You cool with that? And they're like, yeah. And then he would adjust the resistance and then take it off, or adjust resistance and take it off. And meanwhile, he's looking at energy systems, and he just would cook people that way. And if people have the expectation that, hey, I need to get some fitness in, some aerobic conditioning, we can do that. We can still have our skill work. But the old day where we're like, all we did was work on handstands and, P-bar holds and L-sits, like, that can be a part of the seasoning. But let's not forget that as we've evolved, we know is that not everyone needs all of this all the time. And so in that situation, we know that this person needs to breathe hard and lift a weight and learn some skills and feel better when they leave. And I think that's really crucial. And honestly, let me just be so clear. If you get injured in a CrossFit gym, bro, it is the safest place on the planet because I can limit all of your things. You know what's dangerous? Pickleball. You know what's dangerous? Basketball. You know what's dangerous? Football. You know what's dangerous? Any sport is dangerous. And because it's real life, high speed, lots of variables. But in this situation, we can control all the variables. So that meant someone was going ham, someone was going too heavy, someone was exceeding their capacity to maintain their positions and skill, right? Or someone was doing something they weren't ready for, or it didn't have any tissue tolerance for it. And again, what I'd say is, you're going to uncover everyone's bullshit in the gym. Be prepared for that. Like, you're going to come up against someone's lack of range of motion or the old tendinopathy or the instability in the shoulder. You better have a template and a strategy for that. And I'm telling you, tempo, speed, range of motion, nutrition, sleep, all of those things are going to do it.
We've spoken a lot about, for all three of us, where belief systems have changed over the last 20 years. One thing, I don't know if I'm going to get the exact quote, but it used to just, the 10-minute squat was everything.
The 10-minute squat was the first thing that I ever programmed on Mobility WOD on the blog. And the reason I did that was I needed, people were just talking about their squat depth and squat position. And I was like, you actually don't squat all the way down ever. And you don't spend any time there. It was also a sneaky way to get people to load their ankles and round their back and be in flexion and at the bottom position. But people couldn't even squat all the way down. And that's just range of motion. That's normative. That's not super normal range of motion, but people couldn't even do that. And I was like, well, what do you think is going to happen to your Olympic lifting? No wonder your Olympic lifting sucks. And all these skills suck because you don't even have access. And before we get complex, let's make sure that we're getting exposure to the thing instead of talking about the thing or programming around assistants to work around the thing. Let's do the thing. And that could be, hey, I don't do pull-ups. Great. Can you hang from a pull-up bar? Because that's the thing, right? Whenever I go overhead, that hurts. Well, good. Let's start to build competency there. And that was the 10-minute squat test. Simple. Let's make sure exposure is there first.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I couldn't do 30 seconds. And then now to this day, I try to get 10 minutes every single day. Still all these years later.
Me too. I squat so much. And what it's turned into for Juliet and I is that we think you should sit on the ground for 20 or 30 minutes in the evening at the end of the day. It's a perfect place to do sides, saddle, you can do 90-90s, you can pancake split, you can do hurdlers, you can squat, right? You can do all, and then the rollers there so you can take care of yourself. So the bottom line is I still do it, but I've advanced where and when we're going to do it. But when we started this thing, as you say, you're like, I'm elite, but I can't squat for longer than 30 seconds. And I was like, oh, okay. I think there's some low-hanging fruit here.
I'm right there with you. That's my nighttime routine. The kids go to bed and it's like, cool, this is my way of chilling out, getting ready for some good sleep. And everyone's going to learn from you in Dallas, October 24th, 26th. Good luck. It was Caroline. Was that your daughter's name?
Caroline,
Caroline. Good luck this was their senior season.
senior season. And
Actually, you said something much earlier before we wrap up. You said Olympic lifting was her second sport. To me, like the explain why, you would think it's like she needs to you said it's 4 by 7, right? 28 minutes for a game. How does a one rep snatch help her tread? I mean, there's some obvious answers within there, but why is that her second sport?
well, number one is the Olympic lifting is such a harsh mistress that it's so demanding of range of motion and control. And so much. I mean, Dan John, when he was working with us a million years ago, when people asked him, hey, what would you do differently? He's like, more overhead squats, because it makes the body one piece. And we used to have these ideas that you should either be able to body weight your squat. You should be able to overhead squat your body weight 10 times, or what was like plus 40 pounds or 60. There was something that you could do there. So what ends up happening is it's a perfect place to teach skill and control and speed and rate of force development. And, it creates a framework that when she's in season, we can go light and fast. When she's out of season, those heavy, 5 sets of 3 on front squats and all the assistance and work allows us to touch these fundamental shapes and keep an eye on these things, and allows us to restore positions and enhance skills that we can't get other ways. Don't get me wrong, Caroline still does plenty of conditioning and things, but the Olympic lifting is the perfect framework as a strength and conditioning practice to protect her, because she's still got to do pull-ups, she's still got to do push-ups, doing those things. But that core thing, she can always grab a barbell and back squat and front squat and press and jerk and snatch. And, if you want to cure shoulder rabies, you give everyone muscle snatches, full stop. That's the end. And my daughter's gonna be like, yes, I can muscle snatch the 20-kilo bar for high reps. She's just bored with it because it's such something that we've been doing forever.
So Christian, when Kalipa was on, we talked about the burpee challenge, 15 burpees a minute. You came up with a number. How long do you think you can tread water for?
Me?
Yeah. Because you were way off on the burpees.
I
So
was way off on the burpees.
I would just like just to see, because I'm gonna
I'm
throw
gonna stick with the
3
same
minutes.
number.
3 minutes for me. I'm drowning.
I'm gonna stick with the same number I said
too.
for burpees. I'm gonna go with 15.
That's amazing.
He's Kelly. Don't.
It costs Caroline, like, it's amazing. I watched her. She was maybe like 13, 14, and she had her eyes up because the sun was in her eye, and they're doing a scrimmage, and she did not touch the side for over an hour, like an hour and 10.
That's
And just
crazy.
like one hand, and then she generate these forces. So we do a lot of like peak wattage on the assault bike. I mean, like, all of the programs I work with all have echo bikes, because we can, it's high physiology, low skill. And, Caroline can put a lot of watts out. It really is, for us, it's about her being able to generate huge amounts of wattage in these positions and be explosive versus the demands of a swimmer. And the difference here is that she's a goalie. And if you've ever overhead squatted, like if you did a dumbbell overhead squat, right, that would be her water polo position. So the transfer is like chef's kiss. It's almost like God created Olympic lifting for the goalies.
Well, I would imagine her position is the hardest because there's probably less subbing for a goalie.
There's
And,
zero.
right.
Zero.
And there's no swimming, right? Like I would imagine like swimming is almost a break from treading at some point.
That's
Where
right.
she's just straight up treading for the game.
So I'm a physical therapist, credentialed physical therapist at Cal, and I work with all the teams there. But really, it's so that I'm the high performance lead for the Cal women's water polo team. We're going to win a natty this year or next year. We're real good. I travel with the team, and part of the way that you should come to this as a coach, I'll give you guys an example of how we can benefit from thinking as a coach and a high performance coach, is that my job is I'm the physio. I do the strength coaching when we're gone. I do the nutrition timing. I do the recovery. I do the mob. I work on positions, right? I hand out, gummy bears and keep the head coach from getting red carded. I have a whole lot of roles there. I'm the get back guy. And then simultaneously, my job is to look around and identify what this person in front of me needs. And I think when we go into that, suddenly you can minister to a class. Let's say you have a class of 15 people, you maybe they have more, maybe less, whatever. If someone needs something, you can bend the class to meet that need. And, your job is to look and understand, hey, what is it that we need to do? And if you know that everyone's struggling with position or shape, it's part of your warm-up skill drills, right? We don't have to win every battle every single day. But at Berkeley last year, I was like, you know what? We're outside. Sometimes we start to play in November, December. It gets cold. We're at a tournament and our girls are shivering. And I'm like, this is so dumb. Like, why are we shivering on the side? Because as soon as you shiver, you're dumping your blood, your muscle glycogen's dumped to warm. Like, you cannot get in a fight and shiver. You're going to get your ass kicked. So I introduced this technology. I get permission. They're like, yeah, give it a try. I introduced this technology. They're like, I don't know if the women will take to it. They immediately take to it. They're like, oh my God, this is game changer. I can't believe other coaches from other world-class programs are coming over. They're like, what is this technology? Parents are asking me about this technology. The technology is a blanket. I bring a blanket down to the side, and when the dripping cold ladies get out of the water, I wrap them in a blanket or put blankets on the seats. And this blanket technology has revolutionized this sport. And if we go in with that, like no one's ever thought we should just have blankets for dripping wet, elite athletes. If we can go into our classes with that level of eyes open, I'm working with people, I'm using exercise and training as a framework to help these people do something they care about outside, it becomes imminently interesting, and you'll be so surprised and you will never burn out, ever.
That's really cool. It could be that simple, right? Like, hey, let's put a blanket on you. Well, we will see you at Affiliate Con, Dallas, Texas, October 24th to 26th. If you're listening to this and you want to get a ticket, you can use the code The Ready State. That's $100 off The Ready State. And Kelly, I loved this. Super excited. We got OGs there. You're one of them, Khalipa. Were you at the original Black Box Summit?
No. I knew better than to get tangled up in the black box.
Well,
I was invited, and I was like, I think that's going to cause a whole lot of problems.
Well, it did.
Guess what? It caused a whole lot of problems. So,
But we tried to get Rob Wolf at Affiliate Con, and he was really, really close. And he was asking what it's like. And I was like, well, just imagine the black box with less drama, less fighting. So that's what it's going to be like for the OGs out there. Just the thought leaders. You are giving a keynote, Hinshaw, Jason Khalipa. So, I mean, those names. You mentioned David Osorio way back in the beginning. That's where I met you at his box, and he's going to be there presenting. He's like a sneaky legend in the industry. But I'm just really excited to be around you guys, to learn from you. Thank you so much for coming on, and good luck this season at water polo. Christian, there's no way you can tread for 15 minutes, by the way. You lied to Khalipa about your burpees, and now you lied to Dr. Kelly.
You can if you can swim for 15 minutes, it's basically like treading.
I'm openly or overly optimistic. That's what.
Yeah, see, stay off on the burpees and wait. You know what? You might do. I'm like, I think you won't. You might not. You might float.
There's the same where if you
hey, Christian, you're not that fat. It's totally fine.
You're buoyant. All right, let's let Dr. Kelly go. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks for checking out this episode of the Best Hour of Their Day podcast. We appreciate you listening and choosing to have us help you in your passion for coaching and affiliate ownership. You can find more episodes just like this on all podcast platforms. If you're interested in learning more, you can reach out to us on any social media platforms, or you can visit www.besthouroftheirday.com to book a call. If you found this episode helpful for you, please share it so that we can help other coaches and affiliate owners to help build a bigger and stronger CrossFit community. Thanks for listening.